I look like an old T-Rex right now, but 2 men. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Sky Webb and I'm here to talk about a true crime story that I cannot get off my mind. But before I get started, I just want to put out a little disclaimer that I mean no harm to any of the victims or the victims' families, and I wish everyone who was hurt within this story the most peace and solace, either in rest or in recovery. With that out of the way, happy True Crime Thursday. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. I hope you've all been great. And today we're going to look into the classic Australian case, the abduction of Jessica Smalls. Jessica Smalls was a 15-year-old girl who lived in Bathurst, Australia, and she was extremely loved by everyone around her. She was a really happy and bubbly girl. She was really beautiful. She was really smart. And she had a lot of dreams. She had a lot of aspirations and goals and things that she wanted to achieve in her life, and she had a lot to look forward to, and she had a good work ethic that was going to get her there one day. Her and her best friend Vanessa, who was also 15 years old, they were really close. They had a really good relationship where they talked about like everything and anything, and they had a really good bond. On the 26th of October 1997, both Jessica and her best friend Vanessa decided that they would visit the local amusement centre, which was right in the middle of Bathurst. They spent the night hanging out, having a laugh, just having a good time, playing video games, playing pool, like literally just hanging out on a Saturday night like 15-year-old kids do on Saturday nights. The girls then left the centre at around midnight and they started to just wander down the street. They noticed a man drive past them in a white Commodore as they were walking, and then they watched him do a U-turn and come back around and pull up right like in front of them. He started a little bit of small talk with the girls, like, hey, how are you? How are you doing? How was your night? And he asked, how was your game of pool? Like, did you enjoy it? Who won? How'd it go? And Vanessa sort of acknowledged in her mind at that point that, oh, he must have been from the centre as well. Like, he must have been hanging out at the amusement centre and seen us playing pool, whatever. But she didn't really make any connection of, like, that might be a creepy thing that he's seen them there and then now seeing them here. She didn't really put that together at that point. And so when he offered the girls a lift, they both accepted it. They said, sure, thank you. Vanessa jumped into the front seat, the passenger seat, and Jessica jumped in the back seat. And Vanessa sort of noticed that there was like holes in the car, and there was this and there was that, and it was a little bit dirty, and like it didn't really matter. Things were fine for a little bit until they both sort of noticed that he was driving really slowly, and they started to think that it was a bit weird. Like they were on an open free like road. There was no reason to drive quite that slowly. So they were trying to make eye contact with each other through like the rear view mirror or the side mirrors, just to be like you know what I mean? You know when you're with your friend and something's weird and you give them the look like, what's going on? Like you just want to share that you feel uncomfortable and see if they feel the same way, so that you know like whether to do anything about it. At this point, the driver stops the car, he pulls the handbrake up, he takes the keys out, and he turns around to Jessica and he says, right, come here. And immediately Vanessa reacts and she's like, no, I don't think so. Which is when the driver starts to get a little bit violent. He reaches across the seat to Vanessa, who is sitting right next to him in the passenger seat, and he puts his hand around her throat and pushes her like into the back of the seat, and he begins to strangle her, to choke her. So as he's doing this and choking Vanessa, Jessica sees this as like an opportunity to get the fuck out of the car. So she opens the door and goes to run, and he notices her, hears the door open, so he quickly reaches into the back to try and stop her. As he's trying to stop her, Vanessa then sees her opportunity to try and get out, so she opens the door and she tries to get out, and then he's forced to make a decision where it's like, okay, you can't have both of them, there's no way you could possibly stop them both at this point, pick one. So he picks Vanessa because she's the closest to him. So he reaches out and grabs a fistful of her hair and he's trying to pull her back, and at this point she's freaking out, both girls are screaming, and she's just yanking her head forward. Like she's not giving up, she's just pulling and pulling and pulling until eventually she breaks away and he's just left with a fucking massive chunk full of hair. Now both girls are running for their lives. They are sprinting down this dark road. They can see one house in the distance, they can see the lights on, they know, or they hope that someone's home, and they're just running and screaming, and like I can't even imagine how terrifying that would be. And at some point, Vanessa sort of overtakes, or not overtakes, but just is ahead of Jessica. And she can hear her, she thinks she can hear her running right behind her, and she's just so overwhelmed and like, just get to the house, just get to the house, just get to the fucking house. So she runs up into this house's little doorstep and she's banging on the front door. She's hitting it, she's screaming, she's kicking, she's panting, she's crying, she's yelling, like she's losing it. And mind you, it's after midnight at this point, so like people are asleep. The woman who owned the house was upstairs in bed, so she eventually gets out of bed, crawls downstairs and is like, what the fuck? Thank God she actually opened the door and let Vanessa inside, because I know there's a lot of people who would have been skeptical about this situation and might have thought, it's a dark quiet road, is someone trying to rob me? Is this girl gonna attack me? Is someone with her gonna attack me? Like, thank God that this woman let Vanessa into that house, because she potentially saved, well, she did, she saved this girl's fucking life. The woman's name was Faye, and she said that when she opened the door, Vanessa just looked petrified. She said she was white as a ghost, she was shaking, she was trembling, she was just like, she wasn't okay. You could tell that she had just been through something horrific. She thought that Vanessa was gonna throw up or be sick, like she didn't look okay, and she said that she couldn't understand a word that Vanessa was saying. All she could make out of her rambling and like hysterical like ranting was, my best friend, my best friend, my best friend, we gotta get my best friend, my friend, my friend, my friend, like my friend. Vanessa had made it to the house, but Jessica hadn't. Jessica wasn't right behind Vanessa like Vanessa thought that she was, and she didn't make it to the house. She was taken by the man, dragged back to the car, and he had sped off. Faye immediately called the police, and a shaking, terrified, horrified Vanessa started to give a statement and explained exactly what happened, that they were at the amusement center and then they got picked up in this car, and then he took them here, and then they started running, and then he left. Like, told the whole situation. She was absolutely horrified, but she did her best. But the problem was, the police, for God knows what fucking reason, didn't believe her. They thought that she was making it all up. They questioned everything she said. They questioned her version of events, and just, they didn't believe her. They already had their mind made up despite whatever she said, and so they didn't take the case seriously. Instead of acting right away and putting up roadblocks and putting up precautions and like searching the area and making sure this car didn't get away and looking for witnesses, and instead of doing any of that, instead of putting out do we have Amber Alerts? You know what I mean? Instead of doing any of that, they just did nothing. Investigators claimed that the two girls had made up this whole story so that Jessica could run away, because she didn't want to be here anymore because she had one fight with her mum. They decided that they were troubled teens, they were troubled girls, and it was all fake, it was all made up, and it was all bullshit, and so we're not going to look into it. Mind you, the police also admitted themselves that it took months for Vanessa to calm down, to be coherent enough to actually do like a formal like questioning, interrogation type thing. So why, if she had made it all up, would it take months for her to tell the story coherently? Like, that's bizarre. Shortly after this abduction occurred, 2 more reports were made to police. One was reporting a white Commodore speeding around a corner with no headlights on and almost causing a collision, and another to report a suspicious car going down a like unused road and just sitting there next to this woman's house for a short amount of time before then just driving off, and they thought it was really sus. And both of these reports were made the night of the abduction. Like, it's pretty safe to say that the chances of that Commodore speeding around the corner was like the same car. So something to look into, but police did nothing about it. 2 days after the incident, another call was made to police, this time by a man who claimed he was a witness to what had happened. He claimed he heard the girls screaming in the car, witnessed like the car speed off, witnessed them running down the road, witnessed all of this. He had just returned home from his cousin's wedding, which is why he was out like late at night in his house, and he says he was in the front yard when the car stopped. He saw the man go to his boot, like rummage around in the back seat, like don't really know what he was doing. He was just doing something before then getting back in the car and speeding off again. And this guy at the time thought that it was a case of domestic like violence, or not even that, but just like a domestic, like yelling, screaming type of thing. He thought that it was like between a couple, and he said, you know better than to get involved in domestics, which is bullshit. You should know better to get involved in domestics. But anyway, he didn't do anything at the time, but he also stated that like his house, that road, is like one of the last roads out of town. So once you go down that road, like there's nowhere to go from there, you know what I mean? So he thought that it was important to call the police just in case. He also reported that the car was a white Commodore. Again. And what did police do with this? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They, again, didn't care. The man, who was confused that they hadn't followed up with him, because at this point, like, they had come out that this girl was missing, and he was like, oh my god, that could be related. Holy shit, I just let this girl go. I feel so guilty. He was confused by that and followed up with him. So he actually made the effort to go down to the police station in person so that he could follow up himself and like make a formal statement and report, which thank God he did this, because I feel like a lot of people would have just been like, well, they'll get back to me, whatever, and gone about their lives. Like, for him to like take initiative and make the effort to go down there is fucking fantastic. And you know what they did? They got him to write a 1-paragraph statement and then set him on his way. And then did nothing about it. And never looked at it again. Because why would you care about a missing teenager who was abducted? After that, another report came in, which was a friend of a friend who knew a friend who had disposed of a white Commodore, which they thought was important to report, but nothing was done about that either. Then another one, potentially the most important, in a forest area near to Bathurst, a man who had worked there for a long time, he found a set of women's underwear with a bottle of bleach and like a towel or a blanket. And both the underwear and the towel blanket thing was covered in what appeared to be blood. It was never confirmed to be blood, but it appeared to be blood. So this is alarming. Like, this is alarming. And he immediately thought of poor Jessica, because everyone knew by now that she was missing. Like, this guy freaked out. So he reported it to the police. The man who reported it, his name was Glenn, and as I said, he worked there for a long time. He had worked there for over 30 years at this point, and he knew the forest very, very well. It was quite a large area. And he said that it was found in one of the areas that were more discreet. It was more remote and isolated as opposed to like the rest of this foresty area. And he said it just isn't as easily accessible as other areas are, nor is it like casually seen. Like, for you to get here, you either have to wander for quite a long time, or you need to sort of know your way around this forest and where things are and where the most discreet, isolated area would be and how to get there and how the forest works. That's what he said. Like, you need some sort of knowledge to get here. And this sounds like a lead to me personally. Like, so you've now got all of the Commodore spotting sightings. You've also got a witness that like can tell you which direction he was heading. You now also have underwear, potentially bloody underwear, found in an area right next to Bathurst, like where you've got lead now. You know that they might have needed to have like experience. Like, this is a lead, bro. And of course the underwear should have been tested like immediately to see if it matched Jessica's blood, if it matched anyone else's, if there was fingerprints, if there was DNA. There could have been anything on that towel, like semen, anything. Which, even if you didn't think it was related to Jessica, you still should have tested it, because it could have been related to somebody else. But they didn't. They didn't test it. Why would you not test that? Why would you not test underwear found in the forest for DNA that's covered in blood, potentially blood? Why? Worse than that, not only did they not test it, the local police destroyed it. They fucking destroyed the evidence. They got rid of it because they didn't want it. Why would you do that? Like, that is so beyond disappointing to like society, to Jessica, to Vanessa, to their parents, to their friends, to their family, to fucking me. What if I went missing and I got killed and you don't test my underwear? Like, I feel offended for every single female or every human in the world that could have happened to, that you wouldn't have cared about. Like, fuck you. 15 years later, 15 fucking years later, a new detective stumbles across the case and he decides that he wants to take a look at it, and he goes, like, what the fuck? There is evidence here. There are leads here. Like, why has no one done anything about this? This is horrible. This is wrong. Like, this isn't moral at all. Like, we need to look into this. And he opens the case, reopens the case. He thought one thing stuck out that hadn't previously been explored, which, let's be honest, none of it had really previously been explored. But anyway, he noticed that there was an interview that was done by police to this guy who was an employee at the recreational center arcade thing that they were at. And in this interview, he said that there was like a weird guy hanging around in the arcade who he just like started talking to, and he actually pointed out the girls and said, oh, look at them, and pointed out Jessica specifically and was like, she looks like she's up for a good time. Which is creepy as fuck. And this guy, like, he admitted that this happened, which is a massive warning sign that, okay, maybe he has something to do with it, and he gave a description of him and like everything. And police never cared. And this investigator is like, oh my god, what? In 2011, the new detective and his team started investigating people, and they questioned over 400 men. They questioned these 400 men who worked in like that forest area, because that's what they concluded they would have had to, you know what I mean? That list of men was eventually narrowed down to only 2 men. 2 men! I look like an old T-Rex right now, but 2 men. Andrew McBride and Craig Robinson. Now, Andrew McBride, he had access to a white Commodore at the time of the abduction, but not just any white Commodore, a white Commodore that had holes in it, just like what Vanessa noticed, which is a little bit too specific to be coincidental, because like, how many cars just have little holes in, like, that's weird. How's that a coincidence? McBride worked at the timber mill, which would have given him ample opportunity to like have that education about the forest, to like dump the underwear where the underwear was found. And he had worked there for 12 months, but on the day that Jessica was abducted, he left without explanation after 12 months. Also a weird coincidence. That's 2 weird coincidences now. He also had a history with young girls, in particular 15, 16-year-old girls. He had actually, in the same year that Jessica disappeared, he had like sex with a 16-year-old girl. He met her and her friend after dating one of their mothers, and then he got them drunk and high, and then sort of like convinced the 16-year-old to have sex with him after she had just freshly turned 16, which is gross. And he was over 30 at the time, which is gross. And of course, McBride completely, fully denies any involvement in Jessica's abduction at all. He says that the only time, like the first time he was made aware of her abduction at all, was just when the police started to question him about it, so he wasn't even aware that a girl was missing. He also claims that he has bank statements that place him in Sydney the night of her abduction, but the bank statements actually place him in Sydney on the Friday, not the Saturday, and not the Sunday. So for all we know, he might have been to Sydney, but also he might have like just driven to Bathurst. So like that proves nothing. And Vanessa sat in court and watched him through this whole like legal proceedings, and she can't say whether it was him or not. She doesn't know if it was, and she doesn't know if it wasn't. She doesn't entirely recognize him. Like, she just can't sit here and 100% say, yeah, that's him, but also she doesn't have a great feeling about him, which makes it really difficult, because if she could sit there and say, I recognize that voice, or I recognize that smile, or like something, but she can't, which is really hard because it was nighttime, it was late. she was only with him for a short amount of time, and it was dark, like, and you're scared, and it had been a lot of years later, so I can completely understand why she maybe wouldn't have recognized him, but also that's such an important, like, detail. Like, I can't even imagine how frustrating that would be for her to sit there and not know whether that's him or not. Like, I just, oh. So in the last 20 years, Vanessa has done a fair few interviews, and she's pretty much maintained that entire time that it's her fault that Jessica went missing, and it's her fault for not turning around, or for not checking that she was still behind her, or for not fighting him off, or, you know, just, she wishes she could go back and change the way she did things, change, like, grab her and pull her with her, or, you know what I mean, like, do something, but she can't, and it's not her fault, but she still blames herself for that. And she's not the only one. The witness, the man who saw him drive off, he blames himself as well, which is horrible, because that's not his fault. He had nothing to do with it, nor did Vanessa. Like, it's not their fault, but he blames himself as well, because he thought it was a domestic, and he just thought, I'm better off minding my own business. And now that he knows it was a young girl who was taken against her will, like, he feels horrible. I just think all of this is worth mentioning, because out of anyone, if you're gonna blame someone, it's obviously primarily the person who fucking did it, but also the police, who did really shitty police work and didn't care and didn't do anything to protect the public, which is really fucked up, and they should be held accountable, rather than these two people who were completely innocent and are blaming themselves. Like, that's so wrong. And that's the story of the Jessica Smalls abduction. I hope you guys like this one. Feel free to let me know what you think about this one in the comments down below. What do you think about the police work? Please tell me you're as angry as I am, because I just think it's fucking horrific. Also, let me know what you think about the McBride guy. Do you think that he had something to do with it, based off of the small coincidental amount of evidence? Like, let me know what you think in the comments down below, or you can head over to my Facebook, which is skyweb with 3 B's, and let me know there. I would love to hear your opinion. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you feel like it. I would really appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe so that you can see all my new videos. I post every single Thursday, all about true crime, and I'd love to have you be a part of it. I'm getting faster at saying this. Make sure you guys are being safe out there. Don't get into strangers' cars if they own Commodores. Don't trust old men who hang out in arcades, because they're always creepy. And most importantly, always ride shotgun. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!